Hey you, welcome back to another video where I break it down. Oh yeah! Sorry it's been a while in between videos. I was actually acting in a play and that's kind of been eating up all of my time lately.
The blasted rain is coming down too hard!
But now I'm back! And before we start, please excuse this sneeze of a mustache I have going. I'm hoping to grow it out into a beautiful handlebar mustache, so I can be the next circus owner of the 1930s. So while I was trying to find a place to stream Willy's Wonderland, I got a suggestion for this movie called The Mean One. Obviously, my curiosity was immediately piqued by this. I, like most of you I imagine, probably didn't know that there was a Grinch horror movie that existed. And at first, I was unsure how they got by this legally. See, when the live-action adaptation of the Cat in the Hat movie came out in 2003, Audrey Geisel, the widow of Dr. Suess, prevented any further live-action adaptations of his work, mainly because the movie turned out like this.
Humana, 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 humana. Who is this? Oh.
That's my mom.
Awkward.
So knowing this, I was kind of surprised to see there was another live-action Grinch movie. So I did a little digging, and it turns out that this is an unauthorized parody of the Grinch. Here on YouTube, you probably heard people refer to fair use. It basically allows you to use copyright material under certain circumstances. It's how I can make these movie reviews to begin with. But another thing that falls under fair use is parody, and I guess that's how they got by with this. So, armed with this knowledge, and after seeing the Rotten Tomatoes score, I knew I had to see this movie. Our movie opens up not on the town of Whoville, but the town of Newville. You know, we've got to avoid those copyright infringements somehow. We're in the middle of the Grinch stealing Christmas, you know, as he does, but then he's confronted by Cindy You-Know-Who.
Remember that story about Cindy You-Know-Who?
Again, to avoid copyright infringement, I imagine. She gives him this, like, necklace thing. Then the mother comes into this room, and instead of questioning what looks to be a man who's in her house, she immediately starts to beat him to death. And, I mean, Cindy is pretty convincingly traumatized by all of this.
Mommy, no!
Conveniently, the mother falls on this, like, nutcracker spike thing and then dies. The child actor playing Cindy does a really good job of conveying her anger.
Monster!
The directors of this movie probably just told her to yell. I mean, it is a bit unethical to tell children to imagine what it would be like if their parents got murdered by a home intruder, but as a result, it kind of turns this movie into an unempathetical comedy. This movie was produced by Sleight of Hand Productions. And I won't lie, after viewing this movie, I felt I was dealt a sleight of hand as well. Mom, can we watch the Grinch movie? No, we have the Grinch movie at home. So apparently Cindy comes back to Newville years later to face the fear and trauma of her mother dying, and I guess her father came with her for some reason. But then they get pulled over.
Afternoon, folks. Ma'am?
Ma'am? Did he just ma'am me?
Oh, you do not want to ma'am her.
Am I missing something? Is it rude to call somebody ma'am now? Are you guys gonna cancel me if I call you ma'am? Honestly, maybe they should have been more upset by the fact that this dude was clearly eyeing her up. I could already tell this dude was pitching a bit of a tent, if you know what I mean.
I meant miss, because, you know, I'm not stupid.
When is calling someone ma'am instead of miss stupid? Anyways, this town apparently has outlawed Christmas decorations.
Nose in the antlers. We don't allow those kinds of car decorations within the city limits.
I wonder why. Then the dad does a bit of oversharing.
The therapist thinks it's time.
Dad.
You want to get some closure?
Oh my gosh.
They go into their merry way to the house where it all began. Has no one been living in this place? Do they still own it? Did they just walk into some abandoned house they don't even own? I have so many questions, and I will get no answers to any of them. Then we get another, like, cheap jump scare where she, like, wakes up from a dream and, you know, nothing actually happened. This movie has a lot of "it was all a dream" sequences, but it happens so frequently it's hard to tell what is actually happening in the movie. We then meet our next character, Mayor McBean. McBean? Wow, this really is a Dr. Seuss parody. She gives Cindy an evil glare for no reason and then just walks off. The movie won't explain this until the very end. After that, the sheriff and the deputy walk into the diner. Apparently, Cindy remembers the sheriff for when her mother was killed. We get this flashback scene where the sheriff tries to explain to Cindy that she had to have seen a man, that they found a green ski mask outside. But then, for whatever reason, he insists to Cindy that she must say to him that monsters aren't real because of this.
You saw, because you are a big, brave girl, and big, brave girls know that monsters aren't real. Can I hear you say it? I need to hear you say it, sweetie.
Why does he care? She's like 7 years old. Why does he care if she believes in monsters? Then the scene ends with this like sheriff guy waving too long to say goodbye. And then we get this like random ass shot of this Santa Claus looking fella in his car drinking. When I first watched this movie, I genuinely said to myself out loud, who the fuck is this guy? This movie does not bother to explain who this guy is until we're about like 2/3 of the way through the movie. But for your sanity, I'll give you a brief explanation. He's apparently this guy who's been hunting the Grinch, but we'll get to him later. We then get this lovely montage of Cindy and her father decorating for Christmas. And I'll admit, Cindy's father is a bit of a diva about it. Bro is just unnecessarily making a mess of things. Then afterwards, they start dancing. Whenever I decorate my Christmas decorations, I too like to dance around my room like a Sims character. After all the decorating, Cindy must go take out the trash. And then the Grinch attacks! He just beats the crap out of the dad. And then stabs him in the head, and then he's gone. One bit of praise I will give this movie is the shots like this, where he's stealing all the decorations, do feel rather close in spirit to the original live-action Grinch movie. Just has some of that, Jim Carrey feel to it. Cindy then wakes up in the hospital, making us believe that it was all a dream, but then she wakes up with the blood of her father on her hands. Did the Grinch, roofie her? Why doesn't she remember anything between then and now? Either way, none of the characters at all seem to question that she was the last person to be seen with her father alive, and who literally is red-handed. Also, a bit nitpicky, but in the next couple of shots of this hospital, they're all stock footage. For whatever reason, they decided to add this fish on top in the post, with no editing at all to make it look like it was in the bowl. In fact, this movie as a whole really likes to make the use of stock footage. I'm assuming this was some kind of low-budget production, and to be fair, they only use stock footage really where it doesn't matter, although towards the end of the film, which we'll get to later, it does seem to get a bit obnoxious. McBean then comes to kind of console Cindy a bit, and she starts freaking out about the Christmas killer.
That guy is still out there. What are you gonna do about it?
Everything we can, of course, everything.
McBean, for whatever reason, just casually shrugs off that Christmas serial killer is back.
What if the Christmas killer is back?
Not again.
No, not again. It's the same one that killed my mother.
She doesn't seem to mind at all that there's a serial killer loose in her town. And so after this scene ends, we then get the establishing shot of the hospital, just played in reverse, and then another shot of the Santa Claus guy we know nothing about. So after her father's funeral, the deputy drives Cindy home. What a nice guy. He then proceeds to hit on her. She then offers to shake his hand, and there's this lingering shot of her hand with a ring on her finger, except it's the wrong hand. I think this was to try and make us think that she was married, and for some reason the deputy also seems to think that she's married.
Gotcha. Stupid.
Dude, it's the wrong hand. Then the mayor talks to the sheriff about Cindy ruining her plan, whatever that is. This entire scene is kind of weird to me. Like, she says this.
I'm telling you, this town cannot go through another Christmas killer thing.
But then towards the end of the movie, it's revealed that she's leading people to their death to be food for the Grinch. Like, what the hell does she expect the sheriff to do? Kill it? Appease it in some way? I mean, they've already pretty much banned Christmas. So, while cleaning up her dad's blood, because for some reason they left this task to her, apparently there wasn't enough budget in the movie to hire a crime scene cleaner. She finds finds this flower that apparently is from the local mountains, so she decides to go hiking up there. And honestly, for someone who just lost their father, she's in an awfully good mood. You know, she's taken some photos on a very old film camera. Oh, except it's obviously not a film camera. But then something rushes by and pushes her in this cave. She finds the ID of this guy from a different city, and instead of being worried or troubled by this thought at all, she just immediately goes back to taking pictures. But then the green one starts to maul this guy to death. We get our first good look at him, and to be honest, I must say the costume of the monster in this movie does look pretty good. Granted, it's not as good as the Jim Carrey version, but that's probably for the best. That's probably for the best, considering he did mention it made him question his sanity.
When I did the Grinch, I was, literally the makeup was like being buried alive every day. And I went back to my trailer and put my leg through the wall, and I told Ron Howard I couldn't do the movie. Came up with a brilliant idea, which was to hire a gentleman who is trained to teach CIA operatives how to endure torture.
So then she just starts throwing rocks and yelling at the Grinch, "You're real!
You're real! You're real!
And she conveniently has a pile of loose rocks to throw at him. So this causes the mean one to just run off. And I guess the other woman who was being mauled survived. Very conveniently, the woman did not have her glasses on, so she couldn't see the Grinch.
Can you describe the man who attacked you?
Not really, my glasses flew off. I couldn't really see anything.
As someone who used to wear glasses, it's not like when I took them off I was just blind. You could still tell the authorities you got attacked by a giant green thing in a Santa suit. Also, yet again, no one seems to really question that Cindy was the last person to be seen with these people. They just seem to trust that she couldn't be the one who's doing all the killing. It's also really convenient that this mountain is federal land, so they can't do anything about it.
Those mountains are federal territory. The feds will handle the investigation.
Cindy hands the deputy the wallet she found, and he just goes,
Found this up there. There's a bunch of them.
So?
"So? What do you mean, so? What do you think? This is just the local wallet pit?" "Yes, once a year we gather around here to throw our wallets into the communal pit. I don't know why we do it, but it's a real hoot." So later, the deputy looks up the ID and finds that the wallet was from 2009. Ah, the golden age. We then cut to this next scene of the movie of this group of characters who honestly mean nothing to the movie. They are introduced in this scene and then killed in the same scene. They are quite terrible.
Hey, girl, I make you my
And because these people are from out of town and they don't know that you're not supposed to have any Christmas-themed stuff, the Grinch suddenly knows to appear and kill them. We get this like short shot of this driver deciding if he should swipe left or right on somebody.
Do I swipe left? Do I swipe right? Left.
Now listen, buddy. I did the ultimate dating profile, and even when I swiped right on everybody, I got like 3 matches. You do not live in a society where you can be that picky, buddy. Also, if you want to see that video, the link is in the description. So the lady goes into the freezer and stumbles upon one of the dead bodies of these people, and then the Grinch goes on a massacre. Honestly, there's not a whole lot that's worth mentioning here. I do think that the performance of the Grinch when he is on screen is heavily inspired by Jim Carrey's, and honestly, the execution wasn't too poor either. Although most of these death scenes are rather uncreative. Basically, each shot can be described as a 10-second clip where the character is introduced, the Grinch appears, and then he kills them. They also use the same stock screaming sound effect. Back at Cindy's house, the Grinch for some reason just decides to come to her house, even though she has no Christmas decorations up. I think the Grinch just has something against her now. But this is where we meet the Santa Claus dude who was just randomly in those 2 shots. He gives us a bit of a backstory to what the Grinch in this movie actually is. There's a semi-funny bit that they put in this movie because they aren't allowed to use the word Grinch.
What is it?
Finch! Order from Mike Finch!
He goes by a lot of names.
Honestly, if the entire movie was this self-aware, I think it would be a lot more enjoyable. Don't get me wrong, it's still funny, but in a so bad it's good kind of way. Also, apparently this guy's name is Zeus, but everyone just calls him Doc. So his name is Dr. Zeus. A very clever movie. Doc goes into how his wife was just cut in half in broad daylight.
That thing cut her down in the parking lot. He cut her in half.
One thing I noticed about this movie is that the color grading is kind of bizarre. It's clearly filmed somewhere in California, but because it's a Christmas movie, they try to overexpose it to make it look like it's a snowy day, or boosting the contrast and changing the color temp to make it feel more cold. It's about the only two color profiles they use throughout this movie. It's funny because the actor's wearing a beanie and a coat, and it's clearly a sunny, beautiful day outside. Next, we get this scene where the deputy is investigating the Grinch's lair, and he sees dead people there. Somehow, he still thinks it's a guy.
I think that guy might have killed somebody.
Guy. He still thinks it's a guy.
Then following that, we get this saucy scene where Cindy is showering and the deputy is there. Oh mama, things are getting pretty steamy. But then the Grinch attacks. Oh wait, it's just another dream. The movie even has the audacity to say this.
Nightmares made it hard to know what's real and what's fake.
Yeah, no wonder that we don't know what's real. The movie's halfway through and we've already had 3 waking up from a dream sequences. We get this training sequence of Cindy preparing for her fight with the Grinch. It's literally ripping off Home Alone, even using the same music from the iconic scene. For real though, she does kind of become a bit of a muscle mommy. You get it, Cindy. We then get a couple other random scenes. Doc gets arrested for drunk driving. This shop owner dude gets killed and stuffed into a box. I mean, he's clearly so afraid, his expression barely changes. And so his poorly photoshopped head gets dropped into a box. The sheriff and the mayor kind of yap for a bit, and it turns out they have a bit of a history together. Honestly, this third of the movie is kind of boring. Cindy and the deputy guy conclude that the mayor is intentionally leading people to their deaths. I'm starting to realize why this movie was recommended to me after watching Willy's Wonderland. Review for that is in the description below. The mayor ends up dying because her car magically stalls and starts playing Christmas music. And I thought Fords were supposed to be reliable. These next few scenes are honestly quite boring and melodramatic, so we'll go over them quickly. After realizing that they are feeding people to the Grinch, the deputy guy decides to go and try to stop the Grinch himself. The only part I cared about in this scene was when the deputy stepped in this bear trap and was given no direction on how to react.
He set a trap. Oh shit, he set a trap. Yeah!
Ah, fuck. Ah, fuck, I stepped in this bear trap that the Grinch placed here. Ow, wow, it hurts so bad, owie. I'm stuck in this bear trap now. Come help me, stepbro. Unfortunately, before we could get a makeout scene between the Grinch and the deputy, the sheriff comes in to save the day and shoots the Grinch. Sadly, this isn't that Grinch movie. Cindy manages to save the deputy, but the sheriff gets himself killed, and honestly, I didn't really care. He was an ass throughout this entire movie, so how could you? Then Cindy decides it's time to kill the Grinch. Throughout this entire movie, there's been a Suess-like narrator rhyming what's happening, and for the most part, it's a fun and welcome addition. But then he says this.
While the folks down in Newville were asleep in their beds, the day had arrived for the mean one to get dead.
I'm sure they could have thought about it a little bit longer and come up with a better line than "get dead," but it is the end of the movie and we're running out of budget. And so, we get what we've all been waiting for. In a frosty arena where snowflakes did twirl, a battle was brewing, 2 winds in a whirl. The Grinch stood there grinning, his eyes in a glow, with weapons of Christmas all wrapped in bows. And Zeus, oh dear Zeus, stood tall in the fight, with bells and bright baubles that sparkled with might. But the Grinch had some tricks, and he swung with great flair, till poor Zeus was toppling, disheveled and bare. There was a jingle and jangle, a clitter and clack, as the two went on fighting, neither holding back. But Cindy, so clever, so quick and spry, tripped up the Grinch with a pine-scented sigh, and there on the ground she stood over him tall, with thoughts of forgiveness and snowflakes did fall. She pondered his mischief, his meanness and guile, then chose to forgive him, with a soft, gentle smile. Why would you spare a monster who murdered your kin, who tore all apart that your heart held within? Cindy wasn't sure, but forgiveness bestowed. The Grinch's heart swelled, and then it exploded. And that pretty much wraps up this movie. We get a lot of stock footage in this next little bit here. Some shots of people saying that they want to go see the Grinch like he's the next Bigfoot. I guess this saves the economy of Newville, and Christmas too. Anyways, that wraps up my review of The Mean One. Sorry it's been so long since my last video. Hopefully doing a longer review kind of makes up for that. If you liked it, make sure to give it a like down below. Make sure you get subscribed so you don't miss my next video, where I make a horror movie about a vaguely familiar elephant with impeccable hearing. Bye!